First, I needed to collect the wood. Only claiming pieces that were chopped down already, I gathered the pieces for Deerfield, Cumberland, Chase Farms, and our home course. Owen set his PR in Belfast, so that was a fun trip over February break to gather that. After 4.5 hours, I arrived at Troy Howard Middle School. Since it was February, most of the ground was covered in snow and ice, and the logs were frozen to the ground. I was able to find some I could dislodge. Before leaving, I found a very nice white birch and made sure to bring back as much as I could. The cutting and drying process took some time and were placed on a box fan to dry out faster. During that, pieces of the former rock by the footbridge were broken and put into a rock tumbler. The rocks went through 4 stages. Each stage featured a different level of grit that smoothed them down. They tumbled for a week with each grit until it was changed for the next one. The wood pieces I'm working on here were used later during the gluing process. Many nights were spent in the engineering lab during robotics season, so the work had to be done disjointed and kept a secret from 3 of the athletes, Nick, Owen, and Connor, who all are members of the robotics team. Rose quartz was gathered from East Greenwich, where the team placed second at Freshman States. Those were also placed in the rock tumbler and went through the same process over 4 weeks. Pine pitch was collected from Pulaski Park. This, along with eggshells from an athlete's farm and grass from a special hill, will be used to form a Native American pine pitch epoxy recipe that will fill the hole caused by the drill. Inside the pine pitch, epoxy will also feature a token from our team's favorite restaurant, Louie Louie, up north from when we compete at Thetford Academy in the Woods Trail Run. The wood was sawed into circular pieces and stacked in the unique order for each athlete. The top piece would be from the course of their all-time personal record, followed by the next best course for them, and so on. The drill did leave a hole in the center of each, but that was helpful in the gluing process and would later be filled with the epoxy. The pieces were then glued and tightened together for a few days. A bolt went through the center and was tightened down to secure the piece would glue together appropriately. Once the glue was dried, the bolt was removed and the pieces were rough around the edges. Nothing a little sanding down couldn't fix. A dowel was placed in the center and spun with a drill. This allowed for an even sanding process. Using a drill press, they were cored out. They needed to be deep enough to fit in the 2 smoothed rocks and the additional surprise that was coming. Setting up the laser settings came next. This involved making the design for the name, the team logo, and each individual course, PR, and date. The certificates were also typed on letterhead and printed. After routing the edges, the pieces were hand sanded down to fix any spots that were rough or might cause splinters. The certificate stating the meaning of the case and its contents were printed, embossed, and signed by both coaches. The laser scored and cut each piece. A circular leather piece adorned with the athlete's name and initial were made for the front. On the back featured leather straps, stating the source of the wood, the PR that was set at the course, and the date in which it was set. The staining process was next. This included some stain used on the covered bridge that was last washed and stained before the 2022 New England Championships. Attaching the top piece to the base of 4 was done with a drill and nail. The top can now pivot on that nail. Gluing the nails into preset holes for the leather straps ensured that no cracking of the wood would happen. Each layer, sourced from a different course, would be labeled from its source, the athlete's race time, and the date they accomplished the feat. The pieces were then held until the glue dried and the piece was finished. After making all the cases for the athletes and coaches, they were ready to be wrapped for the big night.